Joining us now to analyze today's headlines is Chenjerai Kumanyika, Assistant Professor of Communication Studies at Clemson University. Hi, Chenjerai.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well, thanks for joining us. The White House has announced that President Obama will send up to 450 additional troops to Iraq to help in the war on the Islamic State. Likely responding to new gains made by ISIS in the past month, the increase in U.S. troop presence is an indication of how worried the president is about the specter of a regional takeover. White House spokesperson Josh Earnest stressed that the troops, quote, will not serve in a combat role. Rather, they will train and advise Iraqi troops. The U.S. will now have 3,550 troops in a country it was supposed to have officially withdrawn from. According to The Guardian, the extra troops are heading for Anbar province to block ISIS advances from Ramadi to Baghdad and to try to resurrect a U.S. strategy employed from 2006 of arming and training an alliance of Sunni tribes to fight al-Qaeda, which was dubbed the Anbar Awakening. Well, Chenjerai, what is your opinion of this move? Can just throwing additional troops at this conflict really make a difference?
Well, I think the eventual goal of trying to arm and train Sunni local forces is a good goal, but it's unlikely that sending in trainers is really going to achieve this fast enough. Juan Cole has pointed out that the U.S. already has 3,000 troops in Iraq, and in the past year, they've only been able to train 9,000 Iraqi troops. So increasing that number a little bit isn't going to do much. Political reform is also key here. We have to ask, why have so many Sunni Iraqis kind of slowed down on their fight of ISIS, their fighting of ISIS? And the reason why is because many of them feel that ISIS may offer them some protection from a Shia-dominated government and from Shia militias. And so a political policy of exclusion during the past years has allowed the spread of ISIS in the Northwest.
Pope Francis has finally taken action on a matter that many were waiting for him to do. The feisty Vatican leader has approved of a tribunal to investigate why Catholic bishops either covered up sexual abuse cases against children by priests or failed to take action against them. In a long-anticipated move, the Pope has taken steps towards holding bishops, who are considered princes of the Church, accountable. The New York Times reports that, quote, the Vatican defrocked about 850 priests for sexual abuse and penalized about 2,500 more, but there was no similar judicial mechanism for bishops. Several bishops in the U.S. could face scrutiny, including Archbishop John C. Meanstead of Minneapolis and St. Paul and Bishop Robert W. Finn of the Diocese of Kansas City-St. Joseph in Missouri. Details of the tribunal are yet to be revealed. Well, Chenjerai, it's not often that the leaders who enable crimes from high up are held accountable. Do you think that this tribunal will lead to real justice for the victims of child sexual abuse by the Church?
I mean, this is certainly the most progressive step that the Vatican has taken, and it's extremely important, one that both victims and a variety of advocates have been fighting for decades, and that has widespread support. It offers a structure and a process for standardizing the judgment, which is important. But there is some skepticism about how effective it'll be. The real test will be if they can effectively hold senior clergy accountable. People like Barbara Blaine have pointed out worries that we're still relying on church officials to sort of judge other church officials, and that's not the best. We still need to see the church supporting secular laws. And then finally, for me, there's also the question of how much load this court can actually take. I mean, last year there were 37 allegations of sexual abuse made to the church, I believe, in the United States, and over hundreds of historical allegations. So I hope they have some resources to deal with what's coming.
And finally, U.S. politicians are scrambling to make themselves relevant to women voters in the excruciatingly long lead up to next year's presidential elections. The GOP in particular, of course, has been labeled as waging a war on women and has to contend with the large female base that the presumptive Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton is likely to attract. Consequently, it's pushing for greater access to over-the-counter birth control pills. Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte has introduced a bill to that effect, and 3 fellow senators with anti-abortion reputations have signed on: Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Dean Heller of Nevada, and Richard Burr of North Carolina. Still, there are concerns that because the Affordable Care Act covers prescription birth control pills, making more contraceptives available without prescriptions could leave many women having to pay out of pocket. Meanwhile, GOP state legislators in Texas have successfully cut off most access to reproductive health care for women there. Now, Chenjerai, do you really think that women voters will buy such hypocrisy? Is it as simple as just pushing a bill or two?
I don't think so. Republicans have an ideology which really only values women when women are understood within a very narrow kind of ideological frame. This bill, as you pointed out, offers women access or claims to offer women access but at the same time hurts their ability to afford these drugs by trying to amend certain provisions in the Affordable Care Act. Also, I think women voters are savvy enough to look at the full range of Republican legislation. This means looking at their stances on equal pay, violence against women, where Republicans have been slow on, and then abortion, which Republicans have been horrible on. Year after year, they introduce new bills either to outlaw abortion outright or discourage it by making ridiculous and humiliating requirements of women who may be considering it. So I think when you look at that full range, this is not going to be enough to pull in enough women voters.
Chenjerai Kumanyika, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Chenjerai Kumanyika is an assistant professor of communication studies at Clemson University. And by the way, in a follow-up to yesterday's news of Nobel Prize winner Tim Hunt making misogynist remarks about working with women, he has now reportedly resigned over his comments. This is Uprising. We'll be right back.